Okay, so I've got my plan set up in a very basic way in Revit, and now I want to take that into Photoshop for some rendering. So I'm going to duplicate this view, and I'll duplicate with detailing just to make sure I keep everything there that I've added in Annotate tab or anything like that. And then I'm going to just select my elevations and hide those by category. But then to crop out anything else, I'll turn on the show crop region and then make sure I can see the crop region there, and I'll just drag that in closer to my space. And that's a really helpful thing whenever you're setting up a view to be taken into another program, that you understand where that crop region is set. It's always there, even if you haven't viewed it before, so make sure you understand how to turn that on and off and control it. So I've got that to where I want it to be, and now I'm going to click on that same button to hide it again. And then I'm going to keep going and hiding other things that I don't want to see. The reference planes won't print, but I'm going to hide them anyway, just to make it look a bit cleaner. I don't really want the section lines to be there in this sort of plan, so I'm going to hide those by category as well. And so I've got a much cleaner plan now, and I don't even want those people to be there, so I'm going to hide that category as well. And then I've just got the things I want. So that's how I want my plan to look when I take it into Photoshop. And I've got the walls though coming up with the shading because it's set to a coarse view. So you've got a couple of options there. I'm actually going to leave it on coarse, but I don't want it to be grey, so I'm going to select those walls and go to Edit Type and then change that coarse scale fill colour to black. So you can see now most of the walls have changed to black, but if I've got any walls that are a different type, like these here, they need to be set also in Edit Type to have the coarse scale fill colour set to black. So it's in Edit Type, so when you select any wall and go to Edit Type, you don't need to go to the material, it's just here, you've got the coarse scale fill colour. Okay. So it's so that if you haven't used that very much before, that coarse fill colour option only comes up when you've got the view set to coarse down here. So I'll just show you. If I change it to medium or fine, you'll see it'll go back to being white because I don't have any colour set to that material. So then I'll just see I've got some other wall types there, so I'll just again select that. You only need to do it once for each wall type. And again, we'll get the black fill. We could do this in Photoshop, but it's quicker just to do it here. And then now, columns are different. So columns aren't like walls. They don't have a coarse scale fill option. So have you been shown to have them black for your drawings? You're not going to show material for those, are you, in your design class? Yeah, so we want those to show black. So you need to use a little trick here. You need to change the colour of the material. You can't, there's no coarse option, so unfortunately there are many kinds of objects in Revit that don't have that coarse option. So I need to just select the columns, and I'm holding down Control to select each one because the material I know with most columns isn't set in Edit Type. It's just because of the way the guys who make these columns have decided to do it. It's in the element properties. In other words, just in the properties panel, you'll see it's got this structural material option, and then you can change the material there quite easily. Just need to know that it's there. So it's not Edit Type, it's just here. And so I'm going to go and find the material that they should be using. I've got to choose it because I've chosen a few different types of columns. So it'll be one of the concrete materials, probably the polished one that I set up earlier, concrete polished. And so you can see it's got a cut pattern. So it's on concrete, hatch, I'm just going to change that to solid fill and leave the colour on black, and of course then we should get a black fill. So that should be enough. These other things, they're not actually solid, so they're fine as they are. So everything now has fairly clean graphics ready to be exported. So then the next thing is optional, but it's still helpful if you make a sheet. So I'm going to right-click Sheets All, get a new sheet, load, and then get a title block from the Revit library folder on the P drive, where I've got plenty of very plain sheets. So there we've got A3 metric blank, which is a blank A3 page. And you may be thinking, why am I bothering with this when it's a page that doesn't have anything on it? But it's still helpful because now I can drag my ground floor copy and then place it onto the page, and I can see how big that plan is on this page and position it the way I want it to be on the page. And then that position is going to be consistent. If I keep needing to re-export this plan, which I probably will, then that position is going to be the same every time. So that's why it's helpful to have the page set up. It's an easy thing to do. And so you can see there, 1 to 100, it will fit really easily. So maybe I can try 1 to 50. Just try that over here. And it maybe is not quite going to fit. That's a shame. What size are you doing your boards for your design class? Are you doing 1 to 100? Yep. Okay, so that's fine. So, okay, so I'll just do it 1 to 100 then. Yeah, so that's why this is still helpful to help work it out, because we can see it won't fit on an A3 page, so we'd need to go up to A2 if we wanted to do 1 to 50. So now I can change this page. There's my page border, and so by going to Edit Type, and then I click and go to Load, and so if I wanted to change it to A2, I could choose that A2 one from there. That one there, A2 blank, no border, is the one that's the plainest. But I think I'll go to 1 to 100, because A2 is pretty big. So I'll go for the A4 metric blank, and then see if I change this back to 1 to 100, and that should fit easily on the A4 page, and that probably makes sense. And so this isn't the size that it's going to be on the boards necessarily. This is just the size that we're going to have when we bring it into Photoshop. And then that A4 Photoshop page can be placed onto any size page we want in InDesign. So it's just really to get a handle on the... Oh yes, of course, yeah. Yeah, oh, absolutely, yeah. So then I'll set this viewport to have no title over here in Properties, because we don't want the ugly Revit label there. So just to no title, and I've got a nice clean floor plan set up on a page, and then I can keep control of that position and the size when I bring it into Photoshop, because you'll see that often you'll bring it into Photoshop and do a lot of work rendering, and then later on you realise you've got to change your design, and you'll need to bring that line work in again, and you want it to be in exactly the same spot in Photoshop. So that's why it's really helpful to have it on the page, rather than taking it straight from the floor plan view. That's all. So that's why I've done all that. Okay, so I've got my new page, save my file, and then go and export it. So remember, when I say export in Revit, I nearly always mean print to PDF. So here, if we go File Print, and then choose the Adobe PDF printer, then go to Setup and make sure it's on Vector Processing. We should get vector graphics when we bring this into Photoshop. Got to also set the page size to the same as I've set my title block, of course A4. Oops. zoom 100%, and then just make sure when you're using this placement option that you keep it the same. You can use either, you can use center or offset from corner, but just keep it the same if you're going to re-import it into Photoshop. So that's it, and then I'll click OK, and then OK again. And so I'll call this retail plan, should do, and just make sure I know exactly where that's going. Yep, it's fine. This is where you have to cross your fingers and hope that the Photoshop, the Adobe PDF routine doesn't hang like it often does. And it's doing its usual thing, making life hard for everyone. Okay, so I'm going to just close all the PDF files I've got open, and maybe I'll even have to close my browser. It's a memory issue, because I've noticed on computers that I've got with lots of RAM, I've never had this problem. So it's always computers. I mean, these computers have 16 gig of RAM, but that still seems to be not enough. So if you close all the programs and sometimes close Revit and restart it, and then even sometimes restart your computer, then it seems to work better. But it's only this Adobe one that has this problem. So I'm going to close this, and then I'll try once more. Sometimes it works better the second time once you've closed a few things, and then I'll show you some alternatives. So I'll just try clicking OK, and let's see if it will go through this time. And it's not just with Revit. I've seen that Adobe PDF do the same thing. Here we go. Now it's working. You know, so it's a memory issue. They've just got it. Adobe do programming in a very strange way, which I'll always complain about because they're just not in the don't have their heads in the game in that way. So, the other alternative, if that still isn't working for you, you can use the Microsoft one. But don't think that's going to solve all your problems, because the Microsoft one is even worse than the Adobe one. Sometimes it works when the Adobe one doesn't, but overall it is much worse. So only use that Microsoft one if you absolutely have to. It creates all sorts of other errors, and I really can't stand using it if I've got a choice. So only if you really, really have to use that one. And it only goes up to A3 as well, so it's a very limited option. But again, sometimes when the Adobe one doesn't work, that Microsoft print to PDF will work. So that's one option you have. But the better option is to get one of the free PDF converters that are available, and there are plenty. I think I've told you about a few of them. Primo PDF, Qt PDF, Nitro. Well, Nitro's the paid version of Primo. And there are stacks of others that all work perfectly, never have a problem freezing, and the quality's at least as good as the Adobe one. So think about installing some other options for creating PDF files on your own computers. We just can't install them here because getting non-standard software on these computers these days is extremely difficult. Anyhow, we've got it working, and normally you will get that Adobe one to work. Sometimes just with a little bit of pushing. And then I'm going to go and open that PDF file. So there it is, Retail Plan 2019. And then we've got to check the options here. And this is something I really need to force myself to do, because I sometimes skip this, or I just assume that the settings are the same. And here they're right, but sometimes people will change them, and you need to make sure, firstly, that you've got it on RGB colour. Even though this is a black and white image, we want to render in colour. So that has to be RGB. Well, you can use CMYK, but probably better to start with RGB. I'm going to set the size to millimetres, just so that I can check the page size. And you can see there that it's on, it's the wrong size. So if you know why it's, well, what's wrong about that? It's 296 by 210. Remember, it was A4. Yeah. Well, so actually, that is. Sorry, I'm wrong. It is. It's not what I thought. It is the right size, or it's close enough. So because A4 is 210 by 297. So it's within a fraction of a millimetre. But sometimes this will be wrong because it's on bounding box, and it'll crop it to the size of the thing you've got in your PDF. So if instead you set it to media box, that forces it to be the original size of the PDF and won't crop. Yeah, so watch out for that bounding box option. Sometimes that can cause a problem. Yeah, so anyhow, maybe if I put it on a crop box, it'll do what I thought it was doing. No, so it's been pretty good. Sometimes when you've got the page set up in Revit, it fixes that issue anyway.
So what do you do?
I think normally media box is the best, but in this case it wouldn't matter because it's you can see it's the same pretty much for all of them. It's not cropping it. But you'll see what I mean when it does crop it, the size will go down. But yeah, media box normally is the best one. So that's it. So now I'll click OK, and we've got our plan brought in perfectly with a transparent background. So if it's got the white background, try again with some different settings and make sure you can get it with that transparent background. So now I'll go and make a new layer. It's a shame hopefully it's not going to cut off the bottom here. I might just adjust my Photoshop window for the recording. That should be right. Oh yeah, there we go. So then I'm going to, maybe to keep it organised, start renaming these layers. So you can just double click on the name, and we'll call this one line work. And then layer 2 I'll call floor finish, or just floor is enough. And then I'm going to drag that layer to the bottom. And so then, to select the floor area that I want to render, I'm going to use the rectangular marquee. So you see a lot of people who don't go through the step of setting a transparency will use the magic wand to select the area that they want to render. And that's really tedious with interior design drawings because you're going to have a lot of detail and you don't want to be picking around all of those lines that have all the detail. And so then having a transparency now, instead I can use this rectangular marquee and just click and drag to select most of that floor area. So maybe up to about there is good enough. And notice I'm just going under the walls, that's fine. And then I'm going to hold down Shift. It's not Control in Photoshop like it is in Revit, it's Shift to add to the selection. And then I can just use more rectangular marquees to get the marching ants going around all of my areas that I want this floor finish to be. And then you can zoom in with Control Plus. And then my favourite thing in Photoshop, holding down Control with the scroll wheel, pans left and right. So to pan left and right, you hold down Control and then use the scroll wheel. And then if you let go of Control, that pans up and down. So then, you know, you can control the view fairly easily. And then the other good one is Alt with the scroll wheel, zooms in and out. So that can help you a lot to navigate. And so then I've got the floor finish, and here we'd need to maybe start to think more about where the floor finish is going to end. And have you thought about it in that level of detail, where exactly your floor finishes under your door? Where would you think? Well, it's actually not an obvious one because this is retail. Normally, the floor finishes under the door. So if you think about it, when the door's closed, you don't normally want to see the flooring sticking out under the door from the other room that you're in. So the floor finish should finish nicely under the door when it's closed. So that's the normal way, especially in residential. And even here in public building that we've got, you'll see that's how the floors normally finish, under the doors. But in retail, you'll often have a special plate or some sort of threshold material where the door is, where the entry especially is. So you might have a metal plate there or something that forms part of the door frame. So you've got a few different options. And so here, I'm going to say that's what I'll have, and I'm going to take my floor finish just up to where that door begins, and then maybe we'll have a different finish from that point onwards. You need to think about those things a little bit when you're rendering. So I've got the area that I want my floor. Yes? Oh, I'll do the white. Sorry, yes, I'll skip that. I will add that in. Yes, I'll add that. Yeah, but I just wanted to get straight into doing some rendering, and then yeah. But I'm glad you reminded me because yeah, I wouldn't normally myself put the white in just to make it easier to look at. So I'll come back to that. And so yeah, so now I'll just put in a simple colour, and so you've got a few options for that. The paint bucket tool is under, which one is it under? Here we are, under the gradient tool. You've got paint bucket, and then you'll see if I've got a colour. So over here you've got your colour swatch. You can also use the swatches to pick up different colours. This is a really simple finish, and then that's a quick way of filling in any area that you've got selected. So that works. And you can do gradients and all sorts of things for colour fills. But I thought since you all, or I think most of you want some sort of more detailed finish, like timber or concrete, I'll show you how you can get pattern by opening a file that has a material that I want. And so we'll get that material images folder and go to wood, and I've got there, if you watch any of my other videos where I do this, you're going to get sick of this material because I use it all the time, but it's one that I like because I really like cedar. So here we are, I've got this file called cedar fence. So that's got the floor finish that I want, and then if you remember, you can go to image size on the image menu to check the size of that image. I'm going to turn resample off and then choose I'll set the resolution to 300 so that I can see how big that is with that 300 dpi setting. And you can see it's fairly large. It's, well, not too large, about 6 centimetres by 4 centimetres. Let's click OK. Now I'll go back to my plan file, and I'm going to check the same thing. So the image, I'll go to image size, and it's already on 300 dpi. Just wanted to make sure of that. And it's, again, the size that we checked before. It's an A4 page. So then you can relate the size of the previous image to the size of this plan, and that means, if you think about how big 6 centimetres would be, roughly it'll be kind of that size. That could be alright. So I'll test it out. You can fine tune the size, but it's good to get a rough handle on the size of the texture that you're going to use before you make it into a pattern. So that's okay. I could always go back into image size and maybe make it a little bit smaller. And so in that case, if I want to adjust the size, once it's set to 300 dpi, then we'll tick resample this time, and maybe I'll make it 5 centimetres or 50 mil. And that'll make it a little bit smaller. And I'm going to then save as, and I'll call it cedar fence reduced. So you'll see in a second where this size comes into it, and then you'll see one of the best things I learned quite late in Photoshop, not until the sort of late 90s that I really used this thing, and it's such an obvious thing once you know it. On the edit menu, you've got the option there to define a pattern. Brilliant thing. Not as good as the Illustrator patterns. The Illustrator patterns are amazing. If you like doing developing your own patterns, Illustrator is the best tool in the world, but Photoshop's still great. So under edit, again, define pattern, and then you need to give it a name. So I'm going to call it wood floor. Done. That's how easy it is to make a pattern in Photoshop. So now I'll go, just to keep it simple, I'll do this on the edit menu. Oh, sorry, okay. Oh, yours is, oh no, there you are. I don't know why that's dropped off, that's weird. So I'll just try that one again. Coming back now, it's dropping out that computer, unfortunately. Yeah, I can't, you need to maybe log off. Yeah, sorry, yeah. Okay, so yeah, so again, you've got the pattern fill option, but you can always just go to the edit menu and then choose fill and set it to pattern. And then from there you can choose the pattern that you've created. It's that easy. And you've got many other options with patterns, but for now I'll just keep it simple, click OK, and there we are. So we've got the floorboards there, they're big, and don't want to go too much into procedural options for patterns, so maybe to adjust the size, instead of going through all those options, the simpler way, I think anyway, is to go back to the original file, and it's good to do it this way as well because you can then adjust the image itself, because you can probably tell that's a bit too saturated and dominant, you know, for this sort of rendering, it's too much. And I don't want to just fiddle with the layer here, I want to get it right in my pattern. No? That's right, they're too big, yeah. So you can change the size. There is an option to set the scale using the pattern fill option, but what I'll do instead is just show you, if I go back here and go to image size, and we'll make it half the size again. So I'll make it 25mm across, and then now it's down to 16mm. So it's, you know, it's much smaller. And then I'll go to image and then adjustments, and then use the, I'm actually going to use hue saturation. So you can play around with all these adjustments, they all do different things. And so I might reduce the saturation there, which is going to make it less colourful. And then I'll increase the lightness to make it lighter as well. Now that's lost a bit of contrast, so I'm going to go back now to just the brightness contrast and bring the contrast up, just to get a bit more. And then the brightness we can maybe tweak a little bit. Okay, so I'm just going to define a new pattern. So edit, again, define pattern. And we'll call this wood floor small. So now back to here, and again, edit, fill, and now you'll see I've got a new pattern I can choose. And that's it. So if you are interested in adjusting it on the fly as you place it, you've got this script option where you can get these different scaling options, but I'm not going to worry about that. So, so again, if I click OK, I haven't changed anything, all I've done is chosen the pattern, click OK, and we've got a new pattern. You'll see then you're going to get the same issue as when you use textures for 3D materials. You will get tiling because it's a repeated texture, but that's just life with any pattern that's made in this way. And it's going to be covered up, so lots of these things it won't be that obvious. And of course it's still a layer, so I can always go to here and then use adjustments and play with the levels. Oh yeah, so you need to you can rotate it. Yeah, yeah, you can. Yeah. So maybe I will show you the script option. So if you go here under image, I'll do the same thing again. So under edit, and then just do fill again. And so if you tick that script option, you've got some basic scripts there that will give you some customization options. So I'll just start with this this quick fill option and click OK. And then essentially I'm going to disable most of these settings. So the scale, we'll set that to, that's where you can adjust the size, but then the spacing, we've got to set that to 0. The offset, we want that to be, is that 0 as well, to get it even? Yeah, 0. The colour randomness, we want that to be 0 as well. The brightness randomness, 0. And then now you can see it's got just a repeating pattern. So there, you can actually set the rotation there. And so we could rotate it 90 degrees. Oops. No, let's type it in. But then we'd actually, yeah, because it's not in proportion, we'd have to change the spacing, which would be a bit fiddly. It would work in the end, but there'd be a bit of adjustment to get that right, because they're the offsets. Yeah, they'd have to. Oh, not the offsets. Sorry, the spacing would need to adjust back this way. There we are. So, yeah. So that would work, but that can be a bit fiddly using all these options. So probably the easier and simpler way is to just go back to the original image and then rotate it there and then just make a new pattern. Yeah, that's what I'll often do. But I mean, I use these a little bit. And you can get some nice things if you do want the patterns to be a little bit random. That can give some interesting effects. And the brightness randomness, that can be interesting too. So, oh yes, you could, but it'd rotate the whole selection if I did it here. Yeah, it wouldn't rotate the pattern within that selection, if that makes sense. Yeah. But that could be interesting, getting a bit of different variation there. No, doesn't look that good. So I'll do that. Yeah, I think that's better. But actually, you're right. So maybe it would make more sense, though, for the floorboards to go the other way. Just, I mean, sometimes that's determined by construction, but here you're not limited by that. So maybe I'll do it the other way. So here, if instead we just go to image and then image rotation, 90 degrees clockwise, and then save it again as a new file. And then again, define a new pattern. So wood floor rotated. And then back to here, again, edit, fill, and I'll choose finally the last one. And, oh, sorry, I'll cancel that because I left the script on. So I'll just go back, edit, fill, and turn that script option off. And then it's just going to place the pattern normally. Make sure I've got the right one. Yep. There we go. So you might find better ones, and this works at a larger scale, but maybe over that big area, this isn't the greatest pattern in the world to be using. So maybe just to finish that, I'll show you some of the others. So a lot of these others, they're not as nice wood, but they maybe are going to repeat in a better way than the one I've been using. So this cedar, it definitely will repeat a little bit better. It's a bit darker, but again, we can tweak that. So we've got all these different options. And so again, image rotation might be better. It's still going to be fairly tiled, or not tiled, but it's going to be banded. And sometimes you just got to keep trying for different images. And that's why there are literally thousands of different options. Maybe we want to go for a lighter one anyway. Let's go for maple. That might be better. So there, that one should tile fairly well, and it's not so dark and gloomy. Maybe better for retail. And again, check the image size and get it onto 300 to start. So you've got a baseline for comparison. Click OK, and then go back to image size, turn resample on, and again, what was it down to about 30 mil? 30, 40 mil, let's try 30. maybe 40. Yeah, you're right, actually, yeah. So maybe 40 or maybe even 50. You can oversize textures as well. That's a common technique that people use. So, yeah, they don't need to be the exact size they are in the design, but it's good if you can get it close. So, this is wood, floor, light, what would say, maple. And so, finally, we might be able to get a good texture. And, you know, you want to keep trying until you get something that looks good, of course. Yeah, too big, so, unfortunately. Back here. Yeah, I know, but it's, yeah, you want to get it right. So,
You could just fill,
yeah, use the script or...
use, sorry, on a layer, use it as a layer style, and then you can change the scale of the pattern within the layer style.
Oh, right,
You
so
don't have to change it
in the pattern.
in the pattern.
Oh, so how do you do it in the layer style? I don't even know that yet.
So, go back to your... Okay, so just, well, that's filled already. If you
Yeah.
double click on the floor,
Yeah.
and then go pattern overlay,
Oh, yeah.
and you've got to click on it as well as,
Yeah, yeah.
and then go here
Yeah.
and select it,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
and then you can change
Oh,
the
right, okay.
scale of it.
Oh, yeah, great. Okay, that's great. Oh, thanks. Yep, yep. Brilliant. There we are. That's good. Yes, there we go. That's brilliant. Yes, nice one. That's good. Yep, brilliant. There we go. That's much better than using the script. Yep, brilliant. That's great. Yeah, I had seen that before. Totally forgot. Yep, so that's great. Yep. Yep. No, that is great. Yep. So, there we are. That's much easier. Oh, you can't rotate it. Oh, right. Oh, okay, yeah. And you still got it, and you have to have the pattern already made, I suppose.
You have to create the pattern in the same way that
Yeah,
you've done
yeah,
it
yeah,
already.
right, yeah, sure. But that's brilliant, that's great though. So yeah, great, thanks, that's great. And yeah, so anytime you've got something like that, let me know. That's great. So the, yeah, the other things you can do pretty much in the same way. And then, so the other thing I was going to show is painting shadows. Drop shadows will work. So if we go and do a new layer, so I've got there this floor layer, and maybe I'll just do what I said I was going to do before, and it's not so important now because we've got most of it filled in, but I will still make a new layer, stick it down the bottom, and just fill that with white, just to make it a bit easier to look at. And then we can just call that, you know, white background. So then you've got the things like the shelves here, which you want to have maybe with a different different fill. So I'll go up again to the layer under my linework layer, make a new layer, and then use the magic wand tool to select. Well, it's selecting, but it's not selecting what I want because I've got sample all layers ticked. So now it's not selecting anything because I'm on the layer that I'm going to use to fill and it doesn't have anything on it. So I'm just going to switch quickly to the linework layer and then try again, and you'll see it'll do an okay job selecting there, but it's actually selecting the black because I also have contiguous turned off. So I'm going to turn contiguous on and then try again, and this time we've got it right. So it's selecting now the area inside that that boundary, which is all I want. So, you know, I know sometimes I say, you know, don't use the magic wand, but in some cases it can be a really handy thing. And so then we can just fill that in as well. Or even here, just use the paint bucket and just get a colour. Right, but then that's not what I wanted to show you. I wanted to show you then how you can do drop shadows, and so they again on the layer style. I think this is what you did yesterday anyway. You did, by the sound of it, shadows in here. Is this where you did it? Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, so you can just turn on drop shadows there, and that works. And oops, sorry, I've just added one in, I didn't want that, and to delete them, always, oh yeah, just drag it down to the trash, there we are. So,
Is it the same as selecting in effects?
so I don't think it works the same way, no. Maybe it does, I don't know. Yeah, I don't even remember where effects is now.
Just the icon with the layer.
Oh, layer effects. I think that does give you the same thing, actually. Yeah, that is the same. Yeah, that is the same. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that is the same. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, that is the same. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so when you turn that on, so you've got all these settings here for drop shadows, and for automatic ones, I suppose they're okay, but like I said, sometimes they look a bit, you know, a bit too automatic, even though you can tweak the angles, of course, and all those settings, and so they're probably okay. They just look a bit too, for me, look a bit too smooth and even. So, yeah, probably playing around, you can make them look alright. So that's definitely an option. And zooming out, you can see now we've definitely got some depth there. Yeah, it's probably alright. But then the more common option for people who do a lot of 3D rendering is to manually paint in the shadows. And so, oh now, look, I've been clever, I've been really stupid. I've added this to my line work layer anyway, so you can see it's actually done it all the way around, which is kind of okay, but I really wanted that to be on the other layer. Anyway, I'll live with it. And then, what I was going to show you is when you paint in ambient shadows, it can just give you a bit more control. So, I will make a new layer, and then paint in the with the brush tool, and just get the brush to the size I want, and just get a nice soft brush, and then make sure we've got black and white, and that there's no selection. So I'm going to just deselect, and then painting away, that's a bit too hard, so I'll make that even softer. Yeah, something like that. And so because it's been manually painted, it's a bit more uneven. So I'm just doing it very quickly and take more time on it than this. Oops. Very, very quickly. I'll just do this one wall. That's why I try not to go too far, because when you make a mistake right at the end, there's nothing worse than having to undo the whole thing. So there we are, so just painting away, and then it's obviously very dark, but that's okay because I'm now going to change this layer mode to multiply, and then adjust the opacity to soften that light down. So then we're going to get a more subtle shadow. You can see there as I adjust it, how that works, and what it's doing is bringing in the colour of the floor. You can see there really clearly with a soft shadow.
So the multiply picks up the colour of the background?
Exactly, yeah. I mean, even if it's not on multiply, it'll still be similar, but it does help to be on multiply. Yeah. So that's, see there. That's ambient shadows, so they're non-directional, and essentially if you're wondering where to put your ambient shadows, it's anywhere surfaces meet, especially at a corner, and then you can just paint in, and that's a really common technique. And now you can see, because I've got those settings, as I paint in now, it's showing up with the soft shadows. And you'd be surprised, most of the really good 3D rendering that you'll see, they use the 3D tools to give them a shadow layer, which is called an ambient occlusion pass, but then they'll often go in and tweak that and paint in manually, if it's a still image especially, to adjust those ambient shadows and just control it a bit more. you don't need to be too precise because when you zoom out, no one's going to know. But there we are. So that can help. We just get a bit more depth. So yeah, so they're all the standard techniques basically, and then you can keep doing the things I'm sure you're already comfortable with, just getting images that are already cut out, like I've got some here. Where are they? So here. Oh, here's my Persian rug again, I'm sick of that, but I'll just go with it. Okay, so it can help if you cut those out in advance. But maybe it's a good chance to do a quick layer mask for that. Because if you haven't done layer masks before, they're a fun thing to try, and they can do lots of great things. So maybe I'll just leave it with the white background and copy and paste this into my new file. And then I'm just going to do Control T to scale it. Rotate it. And then move that into the position I want. Now, I want to go over my line work, so I'll finish that and I'll drag it actually above my line work. But of course, I don't want to see that white border. So I'll just use the magic wand and select that. And then, I mean, I could just delete it. So if you press delete on the keyboard, that will clear a selection. That's the quick and easy way. That's what most people would do. But I thought, again, it's a good chance to see how layer masks work. I think I've shown you a little bit before with layer masks, but this is a good chance to look at them again. Yeah, that's right. It's fine just to delete. Most of the time, most people are not going to notice the difference. But again, it's just good so you can see how layer masks work, and they're good to practice with. So I'll go to layer mask and then go hide selection. Yeah. So basically, it's doing the same thing, but the difference is that the image is still there in the background. The white border is still there. Not that I'd ever want to bring that back, but you can then go even further if you wanted to fine-tune this edge. Now I can just paint in black. So there, obviously I always do that. The paint tool with black, and I'll just make my brush a bit bigger. What's going on there? I've got it. This happens. I hate it when this happens. My brush is. Oh yeah, there it is. I know, yeah, and that's why I don't know why it happens. I'm not sure. I've seen it happen, and it is. It's really frustrating. It's one of those weird settings. Yeah, so I always have to fiddle to get it back. Yeah, and so. Yes. Yeah, it will. Yeah, it should. Yeah. Well, actually, I'm not sure. I'm going to test that. I'm curious. So, let's see. So maybe I'll use the button here and see if we can get the drop shadow to pick up the layer mask. Yes, it does. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so it uses the layer mask. Yeah. Yeah. Again, look, it would be just as easy to do that with the cutout. But again, good to try layer masks. They can do lots of good things. And, yeah. So the size of the shadow there, I'll just put it with these options. Oh, that's it. So the distance, maybe that, you know, for a rug you wouldn't want too much. And, yeah, and then the other thing to remember with layer masks, if you do want to just turn it into a normal cutout, you can apply the layer mask. So once you apply it, it removes the layer mask and cuts it out just like you've deleted the things that the layer mask is masking. If that makes sense. So now you can see there's no layer mask. So it's just like I've deleted the things that were being masked before.
So you cut out the white. So the transparent layer might be the transparent to the white.
Yeah, that's right, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, so I'm not sure if the drop shadow. Yeah. Anyhow, that's the thing. Yeah, Photoshop, you can go really deep with it and do lots of great things. But those are the main techniques. Selecting with a transparent overlay of line work. And so maybe I will just do one more example of that, because you can see here this is a really good example of where having something that's not a transparency would make it really difficult to select this thing just for rendering, because we've got all those lines going through there. So what I didn't show you, that you maybe did get shown before, is the polygonal lasso. So instead of using rectangular marquee selection here, I'll use the polygonal one, and then I might just zoom in a bit so I can see more clearly. So selecting now under those lines, and they can go along and just select by clicking points. So you can see there, even though it's curved, it's fairly easy to just trace along those lines. And you'll see when you've got more detailed things, maybe the milk crates that I've got would be an even better example. Well, maybe, I don't know, because you've got a few things to select there, and it doesn't take long just to do this. And yeah, so, and it's all one selection, whereas, you know, if it was the magic wand, and then later maybe if some of those internal lines changed, you're going to have gaps in the shading. So it's just gives you a continuous selection. So there we are. So that's done. That part, and then I can fill it in, and I'll do the same over here. So just holding down Shift, and I can add to the selection. And it's just neat. And also, if you do magic wand and then you would put drop shadows or some sort of other effect on, again you're going to have bands in the selection, which will, you know, interfere with things. Whereas it just gives you a cleaner selection. And also there's a gap in the lines, and I don't have to worry about that if I'm just doing the selection myself. So yeah, so there we are. So that's just going over that area. That's fine, and that's done. So so again, now this time I will remember to go to the layer that I had underneath instead of putting it onto my line work layer, and then I'll just paint bucket, and it's got an opacity there that's been brought down, so I'll bring that back up, and I don't want to be painting in black either, so I'll get a different colour. I'm sick of it looking at everything being brown, but I suppose it's wood, so we've got to do that. And oh yeah, so that's on multiply. So that can maybe give you a better idea what multiply does. I'll put that back to normal. Yep. Well, maybe the thing Beck just showed us is the best way. Yeah, if you've got the pattern already made, do it with the layer properties. Yeah, so do it in here and do your layer style. And what was it? Pattern overlay. Yeah, that's what I'll be doing. But here, actually, that's not working properly. What's going on there? Oh yes, you're right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, just yeah, that's right. Yeah, okay, yeah, yeah, okay. I was going blind there. Okay, yeah, okay, yeah, that's perfect. So yeah, and then yeah, so it's nice if you've got a selection like that that goes over the lines, because then if you do put on the other effects, then it'll work better. And maybe the milk crates are a really good example there, where you might want to fill those in, and selecting that with a magic wand is pretty tedious. Whereas if you just have the transparent line work, simple. But imagine trying to select all of those little holes with a magic wand. That would be pretty painful, I think. No, I don't want the, so let's get this onto a different layer. Yeah, so let's just get colour. And you'll see what I mean when you've got really detailed things. I don't have enough detailed things in this to really show you properly, but that's a pretty good example where, again, filling that in now is simple because we've got the line work cut out, but if it had a white background, which is often what people do when they don't check these things, then you would have to go through and magic wand each dot there, which would take half an hour just to get that simple selection, when it should be just like I've done, just a simple rectangular marquee. And again, also when I do my drop shadows now, that's going to work much more easily. So that should be enough, I think, for rendering things like that. And so maybe I won't show you the perspective rendering because it is basically all the same techniques, but I'll come back to that image that I was showing you, the great, Zaha did. There we are. And I'll try and dig out the one that I've done that I tried to use the same rendering techniques. So there, all of that could be done with some nice line work that you bring in from your CAD program, and then brush tool.
So can you bring in perspectives in the same way?
Exactly, absolutely. Yeah, that's right. So yeah, so maybe I'll quickly look at that. We won't go through the whole thing, but yeah, so if you've got a perspective view, you just need to make sure it's on hidden line. And then, yeah, because if it's on shaded, it'll be raster. But yeah, as long hidden line and wireframe, both will give you cut out vectors, and then you can just render those, and that's what I've got in that that other PDF file. So that's what I'm doing there. So that's again the cut out lines from a perspective with the transparency still showing, but then you can start filling that in the same way. And so I will dig out the one that I've done. That's basically that one finished off, but I'll show you that later. So does that make it clearer for rendering in Photoshop? Hopefully. Once that's right, yeah. Once you start practicing. Yeah. Yeah. But don't get too blown away by all the options you've got for patterns and other things. Oh yeah, it's all recorded. Of course, yeah. Yeah. But it is mainly because you don't always need to have pattern-based textures, and so it's mainly going to be the brush tool is the great one for just painting in colours, and then the paint bucket tool for filling in colours. I'm deliberately not showing you gradients because a lot of people think gradients are a bit passé now. They were huge. 20 years ago, everyone was doing gradients for everything and it was just too much, and so now no one does it anymore for film, just because it's seen as being a bit, bit ordinary looking. Try them if you want, but and they can be good for overlays, but yeah, only go, I'm not going to worry about gradients. So. I don't know if there's anything else anyone can think of you might be interested in. We've looked at text a little bit, so hopefully you can do that. So yeah, maybe I'll give you some time just to try to do some rendering of your plans. And it is really important for interior design, probably more than in architecture. So yeah, really important thing to practice.